Imagine standing on the edge of the sea. Behind you, an army. In front of you, water stretching to the horizon. No boats, no bridges, no escape. The ground trembles with the thunder of chariots closing in. Dust rises behind them like a storm. Soldiers, horses, thousands of them, the most powerful army on earth. And you are exhausted. You are frightened. You have nowhere left to run. The sea blocks your path. The army blocks your retreat. This is the moment when hope should disappear. But instead, history is about to witness one of the most extraordinary moments ever recorded. A moment where fear meets faith, where an impossible situation becomes the stage for something unimaginable. This is the story of Moses and the parting of the Red Sea. For generations, the people of Israel lived as slaves in Egypt. What began as a refuge centuries earlier had become a prison. Pharaoh feared their growing numbers, so he forced them into brutal labor. They built cities, they made bricks, they worked under the burning sun with no freedom and no future. But the cries of the oppressed did not go unheard. According to the biblical account, God chose a man named Moses to confront Pharaoh and demand the unthinkable. "Let my people go." Pharaoh refused, again and again. So Egypt experienced a series of devastating plagues, events that shook the kingdom and challenged Pharaoh's power. Water turned to blood. Darkness covered the land. Crops were destroyed. Disease spread among the animals. Still, Pharaoh resisted, until finally, after the final plague, Pharaoh relented. The Israelites were free. After centuries of slavery, freedom had finally arrived. So they packed what little they had and began their journey out of Egypt. Thousands of families, men, women, children, all following Moses into the wilderness. But freedom would not come easily. At first, the Israelites moved forward with relief and excitement. They were leaving slavery behind. But in Egypt, something changed. Pharaoh's heart hardened once again. He began to question his decision. Why had he allowed his labor force to leave? Why had he let them go so easily? So Pharaoh made a decision that would change everything. He gathered his army, chariots, soldiers, war horses, the most powerful military force in the ancient world, and they set out to pursue the Israelites. Meanwhile, the people of Israel continued traveling through the wilderness, until one day they reached the edge of the sea, and suddenly panic spread through the camp, because in the distance, dust clouds were rising. Pharaoh's army was approaching, fast. The people turned to Moses in fear. "Why did you bring us here?" they cried. "Were there not enough graves in Egypt?" In front of them was the sea. Behind them, an army ready for war. They were trapped. But Moses stood before the terrified crowd and spoke words that would echo through history. "Do not be afraid. Stand firm, and you will see the deliverance of the Lord today." Still, the sea remained. Still, the army advanced. Then Moses lifted his staff. That night, something extraordinary began to happen. The wind started to rise. At first it was only a breeze, but then it grew stronger and stronger. A powerful wind swept across the surface of the water. The sea began to move. Waves pulled back. Water surged outward, and slowly, impossibly, a path began to appear. The sea was dividing. Walls of water rose on both sides, and a dry path stretched across the seabed. An entire nation stood in silence, staring at the impossible. Then Moses gave the command, "Move forward." Step by step, the Israelites began walking between towering walls of water, families carrying children, animals crossing the seabed, thousands moving through the sea itself. Behind them, Pharaoh's army arrived, and when they saw the open path through the water, They followed, chariots charging forward into the sea. But the moment the Israelites reached the other side, everything changed. The waters that had stood like walls began to collapse. The sea rushed back into place. The path disappeared. And Pharaoh's army was swallowed by the returning waves. The same sea that opened a path to freedom became the barrier that stopped their pursuers. Morning light spread across the shore. The Israelites stood safely on the far side of the sea. The army that had once threatened them was gone. For the first time in generations, they were truly free. No chains, no masters, no armies chasing them. Only the open wilderness ahead. The people looked at Moses. They looked at the sea. And they realized what had just happened. They had witnessed something no one would ever forget. A moment when fear met faith, and faith prevailed. Songs of celebration rose from the people. Voices filled the air with gratitude and awe, because they understood something profound. Their freedom had not come from their strength. It had come from trust. The story of the Red Sea is not just about an ancient miracle. It is about moments that feel impossible. Moments when the path ahead seems completely blocked. When the future looks uncertain. When fear whispers that there is no way forward. History is full of those moments. But this story reminds us of something powerful. Sometimes the greatest obstacles in front of us are the very places where the path will open. Not because the situation changes instantly, but because courage and faith move us forward when fear tells us to stop. The people standing on that shoreline believed they had reached the end of the road, but the end of the road became the beginning of freedom. And the question that remains today is simple. When you stand at your own Red Sea, will you turn back in fear? Or will you take the step forward that might just change everything?